Hi everybody, Steve Griffiths here, developer of the MTPredictor software program. In today's video I'd like to have a look at how the ES unfolded yesterday being October the 7th, Monday October the 7th. Just from standard MTPredictor guidelines, you can see we actually had a sell setup here. I've just zoomed in a bit there, sorry, you can see that there, just make that a bit better. We had a sell setup here that was actually taken in just by a tick and then stopped out on the same bar. You can see this was represented by our history triangle here, so this would have actually been a -1 hour loss, so this would have been a losing trade. With MTPredictor we don't hide losing trades, they're there shown there by history triangles. We then had a TS3 sell set up here. This was on a black STF. The market then came down, it came down into this area here where there was a TS3 buy setup. Now, although this TS3 buy setup was against the red STF, which was for a downtrend, standard traders would not have been considering this. However, if you get a setup in the opposing direction, at the very least you should bring your stop to break even on your existing trade. So this existing short trade, as it came down here, the stop would have been moved to break even at 1677 in this case here. So the trade would have come up and been stopped out for break even. So on just the pure standard trade setups yesterday, you would have actually had a losing day on the ES. It's important to look at losing days because as every trader knows, losses can and do happen when trading, so it's important to look at these. However, let's have a look at an advanced trade setup, and this is why we encourage new MTPredictor customers to come into our training webinars to show you how to get a lot more out of the system, particularly with some of the advanced tools. This is where the real fun starts when using the software. The one that I'd like to look at today, and it's a big favourite of mine, is what we call our VSA setup. It's a volume spike analysis. So let's have a look at this. What we're looking for first and foremost is a bar like this one that goes through an important psychological high. So you can see this bar here at 1400, it's 2 o'clock yesterday, made a new high above these levels here. So I'll just put this a high tag on here so you can see that's the level of that high there. So can you see how this bar here went through that level? So it went through that. We had a VSA signal on our volume. Can you see that that bar there down there was coloured red? That indicated that there was something different going on with this bar. There was increased volume. Now, normal standard traders, when I say standard traders, I probably mean amateur traders who are not using MTPredictor, will look at this and say, oh, increased volume on a move through a prior pivot high will equal buying, therefore I'll look to go long. However, what we know at MTPredictor is if this level here goes through a prior pivot but then reaches our DP level, which is our decision point level, then it's an indication that there could be something else going on. So let's go back to the prior swing, which we have here. We'll just click on this, we'll click on decision point. Now can you see how this bar here actually went up, hit our decision point for resistance and then reversed back the very next bar. This DP level would have been on your chart before the market even got there, so you would have been preparing for this trade setup even before it actually unfolded. So what do we know about this? Well, if you have increased volume on a bar that breaks through a prior pivot high, finds resistance at our DP, then reverses straight back again, it means it's not buying, it actually means it's professional selling. In other words, the market is now getting set up for a move, normally a strong move, in the opposite direction. So we can get a new short trade off this in this particular case. We'd go back to the next or the prior pivot low. I wouldn't suggest this last swing here like we normally use. I'd suggest using one a bit further out because VSA setups tend to have professional buying or selling associated with, and therefore markets tend to move further. So let's place a DP on here. So this would be your target. So let's place a trade setup in and around this bar here with your stop just above there. Drag that down to the DP target. There was a potential 2.4 hour profit at this target here, so it was a good trade to take. As the market comes down to the DP level here, we switch back to the STF and can see that it's what we call strong, in other words beyond our grey strength band, therefore the market is likely to trend, therefore we use our ATR stop with this. If I just scroll across a bit, you can see that would have meant you'd have held the short trade into the close, which was about there. So actually this would have been a very nice trade, and if I zoom out you can see it would mean you'd be shorting from the bar of pretty much the high of the day, you'd have held it down there and come out on close, which was pretty much the low of the day. There was probably just about the same level there, but pretty much the low of the day. So basically the biggest move of the day from the high, or the bar of the high, down into pretty much the low you managed to catch. So a very, very good trade if you're a day trader. And the result, plus 4.2R, would have more than made up for your minus 1R loss earlier. So this is the advantage of using some of the more advanced techniques in MTPredictor and going beyond just our automatic setups. This is why we encourage you to come into our training, because there's so much more to MTPredictor than just a bunch of automatic setups. Some of our advanced setups like this that go into some of the reasons why markets make moves, or what the professionals are doing is basically what I'm trying to say, are very good trade setups to take, and it shows you some of the more advanced techniques that are available in the software. If you like just automatic setups, was there anything else to get you on the short side here as well? Yes, if you're following the NQ, at that very same time there was a TS4 sell setup. The STF was red, as you can see. I'll just zoom in a bit here. There's the STF red. So this would have been a standard trade setup for all standard users. You would have been short off that bar there, coming down into here, into the initial target, a potential 4.5R, just as we did with the ES. The market was beyond our strength band, in other words was likely to trend a bit further, therefore you could have held that down into the close there for a potential 5R profit. So even if you hadn't seen that VSA set up there on the ES, by trading, by following all the markets, the ES, the NQ and the YM particularly, you'd have got this standard trade set up here on the NQ, which would have been a nice profit there, and catch that decline into the close yesterday. So a good day for MTPredictor, not only on its standard trade setups across all the three USE minis, but also I wanted just to highlight this particular VSA setup here with our volume indicator down here to show you some of the more advanced techniques that some of the more experienced MTPredictor users can take advantage of as well.